Hello, and welcome to episode 6 of I Was Raised in a Religious Cult Stories from the Other Side. My name is Scar, and I, as usual, will be getting joined by my partner who goes by Lost in Japan online. Do you want to say hello?
Hello, I'm here. I am the partner. I am Japan. Seems to be the
Yes.
most of my titles, right?
That pretty much sums it up. Great job. I don't know why I'm like I don't know what's happening. Anyway, before we get into it, we're gonna drop us a nice hot trigger warning as per usual. I feel like I have not done a single episode without a trigger warning. Uh, I don't know why I made those sounds. That's the best way to describe it.
Sounded like an
So
old
I sound like
brick. I
what?
don't know. I don't know. I was thinking of something funny, but
Try
no,
to
you're
be
good.
funny.
I am
Anyway,
funny.
we're gonna drop in with our little trigger warnings. Of course, there will be talk of being raised in a religious cult, real silly, goofy, like, I was raised as Jehovah's Witness, a real fun time. There will also be talk of child abuse. If you have health anxiety, medical things, going to the hospital, there will be talk of a gruesome wound, talk of sexual abuse, and talk of someone trying to murder someone else. There will also be talk of how crappy the healthcare system is in the United States, and a trigger warning for death. I'm not
I
trying to
think that's
laugh.
all of them.
These
Why'd
are
you just say
serious.
trigger warning for all?
Okay, you know what? Valid. I'm so sorry. It's not funny. I laugh because
You would have to cry if not,
my god.
right?
There's a lot we cover in this episode, so we're gonna have to jump in and rattle this off. So let's just jump in. We've kind of been going year to year with my experiences in school. Last time we left off with the fourth grade. Usually I talk about the summer before the next year. I don't remember a lot of the summer before that. The one thing I do remember from this summer, um, summer before fifth grade, my neighbor friend that lived on the hill above me had come over one day. Her and her sister had come over to hang out with me and my brother. And they had come over and she's like, "Hey, I let your boyfriend know where you live." And I had been hiding the fact I had a boyfriend because I was absolutely not allowed to have a boyfriend. And the thing about my brother is he's a snitch. He always was. I never was, but he was, and it bothered me so much. And so in front of him, she's like, "Yeah, I showed your boyfriend where you live. I showed him your house. He had been over at my house, and I showed him." And I'm like, "No, I don't have a boyfriend." She's like, "Yeah," and then she tells me, his name, and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not his girlfriend." And I'm like looking at my friend because she's clearly forgot that I'm not allowed to have a boyfriend, and I'm giving her that like death stare, and she keeps insisting that he's my boyfriend. She's like, "Well, he seems to believe you guys are boyfriend and girlfriend." I'm like, "He's not my boyfriend." And she's like, finally gets the point. And she's like, "Oh, yeah, maybe I'm mistaken." And I think my brother was suspicious, like, it was so obvious.
I mean,
But
yeah, that one should be pretty
it
obvious.
was, yeah, it was very obvious. But oh my God, I denied it. I was like, "No, this didn't, nope, no." Because I'm like, the worst he can do is just be like, "Oh, they're saying that, you have a boyfriend." I don't know. Hot mess. Anyway, that's the only thing I remember really from that summer. I mean, it was probably just the usual summer of my mom taking us to yard sales and taking us to different states to auctions and stuff. Like, because my mom resold stuff. Um, so she would take us to like these auctions all summer. She would drive hours. She would fill up the car, and usually we did not safely ride in that vehicle. There were very few times we would have to lay in like armoire. Like I remember specifically we had to lay because she had like an SUV, so she put this armoire in the back of the SUV, and we had to lay inside of it. Because there was no seats, and that's how she drove us. And I'm just so surprised we didn't die. There's a lot of
Sounds
stuff
like
that
it.
happened then, and I'm just like, anyway, let's jump into the fifth grade. My teacher, she basically hated anyone that wasn't white or Christian. So she hated me because I was a Jehovah's Witness. Literally, she would single me out and try to embarrass me in front of the class, like for anything. Like I really enjoyed writing, and I was really getting into it, and she had given us this writing assignment, and I kind of misunderstood how it worked, and I kind of wanted to put my own spin on it to make it like just, I don't know, I think it was something like, oh, if you owned a roller coaster park, what would you do, or like, you know, explain that. That was the assignment, and I put a spin on it. I forgot
How
exactly.
dare you be creative?
Yeah, and she like brought me to the front of class and just like roasted me for it. It was so embarrassing. And this year I also had a classmate that was a person of color. The reason I bring that up is because, like I said, she hated anyone that wasn't white, and he also really struggled with this teacher. A specific story was, I mean, she was like huge against bullying. I just want to make this very clear. She was like, oh, you shouldn't bully, yada yada. But one time he showed up to class, and the top of his head all the way down to like a little bit below his shoulders was just soaking wet. He was crying, and he got back to class like late, and she's like scolding him. She's like, why are you late? What are you doing? And he was crying, and he's like, yeah, so and so gave me a swirly, and that's why I'm late. I was getting bullied, basically. And she was like, well, this isn't my problem. You should have still made it to class on time. Like, she was just so hateful to him, and it was just really sad because he was like dripping water, and he was wet, and he was just had to sit at his desk crying. It was not a good vibe. Yeah, that's always bothered me. I can't imagine treating a child like that had been bullied, and to do that is just, I don't know. That's
No, definitely.
one of those things that's always kind of stood out in my head. And like I said, basically, if you didn't fit this specific box, you were going to get singled out. I remember I really pissed her off pretty early in the year. I accidentally led a bit of a rebellion. So a big thing with Jehovah's Witnesses, are not supposed to pledge allegiance to the flag. That's a huge thing, is to not be patriotic. And my classmates one day were like, hey, why don't you? So basically I was told I had to stand up, but I couldn't do the pledge or put my hand over my heart. And like, you know, this is awkward. Thankfully, most of the kids I'd grown up with, you know, most of them knew me by now, but I think this was at a point where everybody's like, yeah, why don't you do that? And I explained why, and how also it was just like, why are we pledging allegiance to like this piece of fabric? And I also explained that I thought it was kind of crappy to say that only one nation was under God, when, you know, if God created the whole earth, why would only the United States be cared for by God, if that made sense? And maybe I
And valid.
misunderstood the Pledge of Allegiance, but that's how I understood it. I'm not really sure what it's meant. I think that's what it is, right? Like,
Basically, it's kind of like similar to like, it's like it's not saying necessarily that no other nation is under God, but our whole nation is, which is also
okay.
incorrect.
Okay. Yeah, also
Because
like,
we were founded by a bunch of atheists, so that makes
yeah,
it
and
even
it's like,
worse.
it's always been weird to me with the pledge how like they're like, oh, separation of church and state, when God is such like a pinnacle of the United States. I don't know, like Christianity anyway. So I explained to the class, I'm like, yeah, this is why I don't do it. And they're like, hey, you know, that actually makes a lot of sense. We're also not going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. And my teacher was a super patriotic woman, and she was like, no. She got really worked up over this. Like, she acted like I had like kicked her dog in front of her or something. And so she's like, everybody sit down and don't talk. I'm like, uh-oh. And she goes to I think the principal's office, and she calls every single student's parents that did not do the Pledge of Allegiance. She also called mine. And, you know, in the Deep South, we're all patriots there, right? Like, that's the huge thing, to be patriotic. Everybody's parents got really mad. All the kids get in trouble. Like, basically, she tried to turn the kids against me and be like, you're the reason that everybody's getting in trouble. I didn't get in trouble at home because my mom's like, oh, you stood up for the religion, I'm proud of you. yada yada. Like, it was just like a whole thing, but all the kids did, and some of them were mad at me, and I'm just like, it's not my fault, I just spoke facts. But, you know, most of my friends were like, yeah, it was stupid, but we got in a lot of trouble, so we're gonna have to, like, keep doing the Pledge of Allegiance or whatever. This just kind of got a target on my back after that with my teacher. She was also the teacher that my brother had too. I don't know. He didn't seem to have as many issues as I did with her, but my brother also was a very complacent. I mean, you know this, Japan. Like, he's very
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like goes
Does
along with,
nothing.
yeah, does nothing. Yeah. He'll just sit there. So I think that's why he didn't really have as many issues, but I've always been very. Also, if you hear any noises, my dog is sitting here with me.
Whining.
He's making all sorts of noises right now because he's just a happy little boy. So, anyway, this was also a tough year because this was the year that our music teacher died. She was like loved by everyone. She was just this really beautiful, magical person, and we had her as our music teacher our whole lives until this point. Like, from kindergarten on, this was our teacher for music. And I remember she was so passionate about music, and she put that passion into us, and it was always everybody's favorite class. We loved her, and it was really weird because, like, basically she just didn't wake up. She just, like, died in her sleep, and I think they were gonna do, like, an autopsy to figure out why or whatever. And of course rumors started because her husband was the guy that had run over a kid with a bus, so everybody's like, what if he killed her? Which, not great for a grieving spouse to have to deal with that. I think from what I understand, it was just like a freak deal. Like, it was just one of those life things that happens. But we were shook. I do remember that. We were all devastated. Like, we were all, like, we couldn't even function that day. Like, and our teacher was really rude about it. She's like, well, we still have to learn. And she acted like we were super dramatic or something. I don't know. She wasn't a great teacher, but yeah, it was, you know, the first touch of death a lot of kids had to, and it was a lot. And it gave me a lot more health anxiety because I was convinced that I would just randomly die in my sleep. I don't know. It was just like,
You don't know.
yeah, I was just like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. I remember we held this huge school assembly for her. Everybody piled into the gym. Like, everybody from kindergarten to the 6th grade was in the gym. And we all sat on the floor, and everybody kind of, like, shared stories about her and talked about her, including the teachers. And then they had, like, everybody sing the song Amazing Grace, I remember. And I also sung along because I felt really guilty because it was, like, a religious song that wasn't Jehovah's Witnesses, because Jehovah's Witnesses have their own songs, and I never told my mom that I did that. I was like, no. I never told her, but I remember I sang along, and everybody was crying, and I was crying, and, like, it was really sad, honestly. It really affected my brother, I think, too, because he really liked her a lot. So it was really sad. It, like, hit our school pretty hard. And she was also the teacher that had started teaching me how to play an instrument, because this year I was eligible to join band. You could join band in the 5th grade. And I had been waiting for years to join band. I loved the idea of playing music. It was something that always had appealed to me. So this was the year that I joined. And originally I wanted to play the clarinet, but we couldn't afford the clarinet. So my parents ended up getting me this, like, super beat up trumpet. They're like, this is what we can afford. This is what you're learning. I was upset at first, but I ended up really loving the trumpet. Like, I loved the trumpet. I would play every day. I would practice. I would go outside. I would practice for hours, like, every single day. I loved it. But when she died, that was really tough because she was the one that had started teaching me. And then after she died, band was canceled for a bit until they got a new music teacher. And the next music teacher was, like, no one liked her. she was like super technical. She didn't make learning fun. I genuinely, I'm gonna be honest, she could have not been a bad teacher, but like,
When
how
you're
do you
going
feel?
after that person,
Yeah, how
you
do you
know.
fill those shoes? You know, like that's the thing. It's just, maybe she was a decent teacher, but we just didn't like her. You know, nobody liked her because it's like, oh, how dare you come into our school and like think you're gonna fill these shoes? You know, we all had these expectations of someone as good as our last teacher. So I do feel bad that we hated her. It could have just been one of those unfortunate things, you know. Um, and then our next teacher, uh, look at I'm going to talk about them a little bit, but we'll learn more about them in our next episode. That was a fun year. Our next teacher, he had like really bad anger issues. He was also my bus driver, but I think that started the next year. But I remember he would scream and curse at us, which, to be fair, our other bus driver did the same. He would like scream at us and cuss at us and threaten to kick us off the bus. I think he did kick a kid off the bus one time. All of this, looking back, seems very illegal to me.
Yeah.
um like, it was not
There
a
you
good
go,
vibe.
Johnny. You're stuck out here in the middle of nowhere.
Well, yeah, because we lived in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
yeah, like you'd have to walk a long way. So like, I do remember, I think it was a teenager that he kicked off, but he's like, if you're gonna act like that, you can walk. And so he kicked him off the bus, and everybody was like, ooh. And like, if you got sick on the bus, he would like be like, no, you're gonna clean that up or you're gonna get kicked off. So like, you're throwing up and then also having to clean it. I don't know. It was a mess. He was a terrible bus driver. But anyway, back to the music teacher. He would get like really mad at us. So like, he was really known for throwing stuff at us. Like, if he would get really mad at us, he would take one of the like markers and he would chuck it like at a kid's head. I personally witnessed this one time, and I've heard of it from other kids that it happened quite a bit more than that. Also, doesn't seem super legal.
No,
No. I
not at
remember
all.
my friend that lived up on the hill, my neighbor friend, she's like, yeah, one time he got so mad, he had this apple and he like crushed it with his bare hand in front of the class. Like, I think he was kind of doing it as like a scare tactic or something. You should not be a teacher if you're going to get so mad that you want to scare your kids. Like, don't be a teacher. Which,
Yeah.
like I said, we'll talk about why I think he became a teacher in the next episode with that whole not great. Anyway, next episode. Cause oh freaking boy. But anyway, let's move on. So that was tough. And I think I've kind of talked about how I would get beat up on the playground a lot, or like I may have shared a little bit. I'd get beat up a lot. It just, I haven't gone super into detail. I did want to share one thing that happened this year. This kind of, I got beat up kind of worse than I've ever gotten beat up. So one of my friends that I had made this year, she had gotten a little boyfriend. And my dog just farted and it smells terrible. Oh my God. Pepper.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, and he's making all kinds of noises. This episode is going to be full of his heavy breathing and gross noises. I'm very sorry. And gas, apparently. He my little homie, though. At least he's here for emotional support. Anyway, one of my friends had like a little boyfriend, and she came up to me crying during recess one day, and she's like, yeah, he got kind of physical with me. And once again, it was during recess. This is
Once
how
again, this
young
is also
we
fifth
were.
grade.
That's what I'm saying. This is how young we were. This is what I'm trying to say. Like, we were very young, and for her boyfriend to hit her, like, especially at this age, was just like, I don't know. That's what I'm trying to like say, is like, we were so young. And she had come up to me, and I think he was like following her, and she's like, I want to break up with him, but I'm scared to. And so like, I'm like, I got you. I'm like, hey, you need to leave her alone. She doesn't want to be with you anymore. And he got like really mad, and I'm like, you can do, I told her to, I think, go get like a teacher or something. And so things got physical, and like we were physically fighting. And then he one good thing about him is he was actually pretty small for his age too. So I feel like the fight was pretty even, as far as strength goes. Except he did grab me really, and he threw me down like really hard, and my knee got like extremely busted. Um it got busted so bad that like I couldn't even walk properly for like a few days, and I got sent to the nurse's office. I had some friends like help kind of hobble me there, and like I think the nurse like she kind of acted like she might need to call an ambulance, and I remember she was like feeling my knee, I think, to see if anything was broken. And I don't know, I think I should have probably gone to the doctor. It had like a huge gash in it, but also like it was just something was off with it. It was wonky, and my knee has literally never been the same since then. So shout out to I think she also called my parents, and they never did anything. And then he never got in trouble because his grandmother, I think, was someone that volunteered at the school and also financially contributed to the school a lot. So he didn't actually get in trouble for that. So that was nice. Like, yes, beating up on little girls, definitely. Yeah. Okay, sure, dude. I think he should have gotten in a lot of trouble. But this was also the same year that I remember we had like this free period towards the end of the day where you could either sit in class and read books and work on homework, or you could go to, like, they had basketball practice in the gym. And it was also it was basketball practice for the teams, but you could also just go play. And I think it was so that they could like kind of see what kids would be good at basketball in the school. This was only girls were, I think, allowed during this time, or it was maybe half of the gym was used for boys practice and half of the gym for girls practice, something like that, I think. And I loved going. I was really good at basketball. I loved it. And I remember one day the coach had come up to me. He's like, "Hey, you're really good. You should be on the team." And I was like, "Okay." And like I remember I went home and talked about it, and my mom was like, "Absolutely not. You can't do this because you're a Jehovah's Witness. It'll interfere with meetings and with being a good Jehovah's Witness." So I had to go back the next time that, it was basketball practice, and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a Jehovah's Witness. I'm not allowed to." And he's like, "Okay, well, that means you can't go to practice anymore." I'm like, "But everybody else still gets to." He's like, "Yeah, but you're not allowed to practice with us anymore." And I remember it just crushed me. I was like, I don't know. It was like I really enjoyed doing it, so it really sucked that I couldn't,
Yeah, and it's not right. You're just a kid. It's not your fault.
Well, and if all the other kids are allowed to go, then why am I not? It was, I don't know, it was BS. But anyway, I being a Jehovah's Witness really interfered with a lot of stuff at school. I remember I had the librarian. Everybody liked this librarian a lot. I liked her, but I ended up not liking her because she seemed to have a really big problem with me. She would make like comments about being a Jehovah's Witness, and she was always very just snooty, kind of mean to me whenever I would ask her for help or ask her for certain books. And I don't know if she didn't like me because she just didn't like me, or if it was because I was Jehovah's Witness, but she did make comments about my... Hello, Pepper. Sorry about the noises. Did it come through on the mic?
A little bit.
All right, that was definitely loud. So she didn't like me. She would always make little snide comments about it. It really bothers me because I was a kid. Like, how was it my fault that I was being raised a Jehovah's Witness? So it was discouraging, to say the least. And I think she kind of interfered with something later that year for me. So we had this, they didn't tell us what we were doing. They brought different classes into the library, and they had us like do spelling words. And I think it was like this weird audition for being in the spelling bee, but like they didn't tell us that's what it was. And I ended up doing really well with it. And she's like, "Hey, if you want to be in the spelling bee, you can join it." And she kind of made some kind of remark about how it might interfere with being a Jehovah's Witness, like the meetings and stuff. And I was like, no, I want to do this. So I joined, and then I told my parents about it, which I don't think they really did anything to help me with the spelling bee. I think I just did it myself. I would literally, we got these booklets, and I would just sit in my room and study the words for hours. And I know we had a few months to learn the words, or like a good amount of time. And I remember putting in a lot of work. I would bring this to school and study it. I would bring it home and study it. I really liked words, and I liked writing, and I liked English. And this actually gave me a lot of confidence because I'd really been struggling with school and math. So like being like, oh my God, I'm smart enough for something. Like I was like, wow, I'm smart. I have potential, I guess is what it felt like. And we got t-shirts for it. And so, like, me and the other kids that were in the spelling bee would wear those everywhere and be like, yeah, like, we're so cool. Nerds, nerd alert.
Definitely.
Just me, though. We started doing rehearsals for it, too. Like, we would do rehearsals at school. And then when it was almost time for the spelling bee, they took us to the town where we were going to be doing it, at this assembly place, which I had actually been here a lot because this is where we had assemblies for Jehovah's Witnesses. So like during the year we'd have one convention and then a few assemblies where all the kingdom halls in a certain area would go for the weekend and go to the assembly. So it'd be like a 2-day assembly thing. They really loved consuming our time. And we would also invite, locals that weren't Jehovah's Witnesses. And so I had been here a lot. And we were there. I think we went twice. Maybe it was once. I really don't fully remember. But I know we went at least once. And they showed us where we were going to sit and how we would act and react and how we would handle things. And I was getting really nervous, and I kept practicing. Like, I was staying up all night, like, learning these words. I was getting really nervous. And the night came, or, like, they told us when, and it was on the night of a meeting for the Kingdom Hall, and my parents made, like, this huge deal. They're like, I don't know if we should allow you to do it, if it's going to interfere with, going to the meetings. Which I'm just like, it's super stupid. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's one time.
Yeah, like, it's one night. Like, how... It's not that deep, bro. But after debating this and me almost not getting to do it, they decided I would be able to. So my mom and I dropped my brother and dad off at the meeting, and my mom took me to the spelling bee, which it kind of hurt my feelings because I vaguely remember we took a night off the meeting for my brother when he was in band to go watch him play in the gym for, like, the basketball kids. But taking off for me for a spelling bee was unheard of, I guess.
Classic.
Yeah, so it was just me and my mom. Yeah.
Just so that's pretty normal.
Yeah, with my family it is. So me and my mom go, and I'm already having all this guilt over choosing this over being a Jehovah's Witness, it felt like. So we get there, there's like hundreds of people at this thing, like hundreds. I don't exactly know where I'm supposed to go. So we walk it down the aisle of the assembly and the seating, and we see my librarian, and she's like, you're supposed to be behind the stage. And I was like, okay, so where do I need to go? And then she kind of like got this weird look on her face. She looked freaking maniacal. I'm not kidding. She had this look, and she kind of laughed at me, and she's like, well, I mean, you are an alternate though. And I was like, what? She's like, yeah, you're an alternate. You're not actually gonna be in the spelling bee unless somebody doesn't make it. And she, like, kind of made fun of me for being, like, confused. She's like, you should have known this. But, like, no talk of me being an alternate had ever come up. Like, I had practiced for this thing. Like, I was one of the competitors. Like, I had a specific place I was supposed to sit, the whole 9 yards. And all of a sudden we get there and it changes. And I don't know. Why would that change at the last minute,
Yeah, it seems like it was
yeah,
something that she set up ahead of time.
That's what I'm saying. And so, like, I wanted to cry. I was like choking back the tears, bro, in front of all these people. So my mom and I go to the back row. I think we were supposed to sit up further, but my mom and I went to the back row because I was about to just lose it. And my mom's like, you know what? This is boring. Screw this. Let's go. Which I was happy for. So we leave. And she was actually really nice. She took me to Sonic and got me some ice cream. I think we got a little snack or something and some ice cream. And I was just trying to hide how embarrassed I was. I just wanted to get somewhere private so that I could feel my emotions. And I was pretending like it wasn't bothering me. My mom was really pissed off, though. She's like, that was not okay. And she's like, well, since your dad and brother are at the meeting, we might as well go clean the bank right now, which sucked. Also felt like a punishment.
Yeah, it's like, what? What do you mean? I'm just gonna have to clean now? That's even worse.
So whenever we got there, you know, usually I had certain chores that I did to help clean. Like, usually it was to empty out all the trash cans. And when we got there, once I knew my mom was in the kitchen, that's usually where she would start. She would start in one of the kitchens, and she'd start cleaning there, and it usually took her some time, and I knew that. So there was this area between the front tellers and the back tellers of the bank. It had this, like, little accordion door, and this room was, like, literally enough room for one person to sit. That's it. It was super tiny. And it was the camera room. And I went in there because I didn't want to be seen on camera. And I closed the little accordion door and I bawled. I remember I cried so hard because I was so embarrassed. I was embarrassed because I showed up and, like, you know, she had intentionally, like, embarrassed me. She was very loud about how she did it. And it was just awkward because all these kids' parents were there with flowers and for their kids, and it was just like this whole thing. And I prayed and I was like, is this because you're punishing me because I chose going to this over the meeting? I remember feeling really small and useless, and I had gotten a lot of confidence from this, and any of it was just gone.
Yeah.
I was just heartbroken from this. So I cried it out, took a few minutes, pulled myself together, and just helped my mom clean. Then we went and got my brother and dad from the meeting, but told them what happened, and we went home. It depressed me. Like, I got really depressed after that. That and the basketball thing just shot me down. It was tough. I feel like every time I sit down to do an episode, it's so sad. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's like, this is tough. It's like, yeah, it makes sense.
Anyway, we get home, and I'm not great at segues, so we're just gonna move on. So the same year, we had a new student start at my school. She was, I can't remember. I feel like she wasn't in my class, but I had kind of, maybe she was. No, she was. This was the year she was in my class. The next year she wasn't. Anyway, I was kind of chosen to show her around to her classes, show her around the school, kind of be like that little first day buddy. Because it was like the middle of the school year. I think my teacher didn't like her. Yeah, it was in my same class, yeah, because I know that my teacher really didn't like her because she was weird. Which she did. She stuck out like a sore thumb. I remember she always had this, like, braid, this really long braid in her hair. All of her hair was braided every day, no matter what. She told us that if she got it taken out, she would get in, like, a lot of trouble. She had really thick glasses. She was very odd. And I remember, like, she was, like, super childish in certain ways. I kind of was too, but the thing about me is I was really good at masking by this point. And honestly, the more I got to know her, there were, like, a bunch of red flags about her home life. You know, the braid thing, like, if it was slightly out of place, she would freak out. She's like, I'm gonna be in so much trouble. She was also really skinny, and I will be talking about her more in the next episode because that's kind of when I found out more about her home life. But we're just setting it up, just kind of I'm trying to explain stuff as it happened in my life, I guess, if that makes sense. But yeah, we'll talk about her more next episode. And this was also the same year my mom had gotten rushed to the emergency room in the middle of the night. So, like, she had been, like, really sick for a few days, and I remember getting woken up in the middle of the night, and my dad's like, we have to go to the hospital. We're taking your mom. I was scared, of course. I remember she had been, like, throwing up a lot, and we get to the hospital, and she's like, I can't eat anything. I can't do anything. It will come back out. They're like, well, why don't you try Tums? And my mom's like, are you not listening to me? And they made her take Tums. Of course, my mom immediately throws up. And when that happened, my dad ended up, or a nurse, I think, may have taken us out of the room and brought us to a waiting room. And like I said, it was like the middle of the night. We had gotten woken up to this. And I didn't see my mom for the rest of that night. And my dad came and joined my brother and I. It was like, in this hallway, there were these 6 black leather chairs with armrests. And I don't know why this is so... I've had dreams about this hallway, so I think that's probably why I remember it so specifically. And it was super bright. And my brother and I were there, and then my dad had to come join us, and we ended up sleeping on the chairs for the rest of the night. My dad took up 4 of them. My brother and I had 2 to share, and what we ended up doing is laying side by side under the armrests, to give ourselves the ability to stretch out a little bit. But yeah, we didn't have much room, and we ended up staying the night there. In the morning, we ended up getting to go home with my mom, and we found out that she had a stomach ulcer. And the reason that she had a stomach ulcer was because of all the stuff that was happening at the Kingdom Hall. And this was also the same year that my mom got, like, really, really sick after this. Like, to the point that, like, she couldn't even get up off the couch. Like, I remember all day she would just be on the couch. She wouldn't move. We couldn't make noise in the house. We had to be very, very quiet. We couldn't ask for anything. We couldn't do anything. I think we kind of fended for ourselves a little bit as far as, like, food went, until my dad got home, any of the days that we were home alone with our mom. And she would go to clean the bank, and she would go to the meetings, but that was about it. It was really scary. I thought my mom was dying, and she would, like, read medical journals to try to figure out what was wrong with her. I think she, at one point, thought she had fibromyalgia, and so she would try to go to the doctors and be like, what's wrong with me? But because we didn't have insurance, they wouldn't see her. Like she even took my brother and I out of school for one day to go to this hospital in Little Rock, like the specialist, to see her. And we sat at this hospital for like 8 freaking hours. And they kept telling her they were going to see her. They didn't end up seeing her. It was like 8-9 hours, something atrocious like that. And my mom's finally like, let's just go home. My brother and I were tired. We had been sitting there with her the whole time, like just sitting in a waiting room. This was before, we really had phones or anything to do. So we were just losing our minds sitting there. Doctors never saw her because we didn't have insurance, and we were also poor. So that I think that they just decided they wouldn't see her because they didn't think that they'd get their money for it. So she just said, you know what, screw it. We went to TGI Fridays. Something about hospitals in Little Rock and TGI Fridays.
Yep.
I don't understand. I think it's because my brother and I really liked it. And
so whenever I need to take you to the hospital, I just gotta take you to a Fridays afterwards, and you're good to go.
That sounds traumatic. What the hell? No.
I mean, you just said it. You said something about that.
Oh no, I'm good. Actually,
I was just trying to help your anxiety out, you know.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
What about if I take you through the Fridays first? Does that work?
I don't.
Then you know what's coming next.
That sounds horrible. I don't want to talk about that.
Fine, I'll just take you to the
Just take
hospital.
me to Chipotle. Just take me to Chipotle. It's fine.
Okay, Chipotle and hospital it is.
Anyway, my mom had gotten sick, and it turned out it was from the stress of the Kingdom Hall. Knowing what I know now, I think my mom has autism. Autism is genetic. My brother and I definitely have it, and I've kind of talked about how my mom fits a lot of the criteria for autism. And I think that she was dealing with autistic burnout from all the stress and all the things that had happened. And I also really think this because this actually happened to me a few years ago. I had really bad autistic burnout where I couldn't get out of bed for like a year. And I remember I didn't cook a single thing at home for months at a time. Which was not great for financials, let's just say that. Which we'll talk about my experience with that more when we get to that. But yeah, it was really scary. I thought my mom was dying, and I was having a problem with dissociation a lot, and I would go to school and I'd be a different person there. Then I'd go to the Kingdom Hall and I'd be somebody else there. At home, I felt like I was just a shell, because like we couldn't do anything without my mom freaking out if we made noise or anything. And we already didn't really go to our parents for much, but this kind of solidified that. Like, it kind of solidified us really taking care of ourselves only and not talking. And, I loathed the people at the Kingdom Hall because I'm like, you're killing my mom. But it was really hard because I was like, oh, you have to be fake nice to the people at the Kingdom Hall. And the thing about me is I can't separate. If somebody does something bad to me or someone I care about, and then I have to be fake nice to them, it's not something I'm able to really do super well. I think you probably know this, Japan. I'm just not good with that. You're better at that than me, where like you can be more like cordial, and I can't.
It's 50-50. I feel like we have it in certain ways. I mean, I think it's just kind of also based off of the careers that we have and stuff. You can't burn bridges in a place that everybody you're talking to, doesn't matter if I've been there 10 years or if this guy's been here for 2 minutes. That guy that's been here 2 minutes might know 15 people above me, and if I am not cordial or just at the right brain, I might be the one that gets taken out.
I get that. No, I definitely get it. I don't like it. I don't think you like it either, but like, it's just something I really struggle with, and especially this young and being like, yeah, you're killing my mom, but I got to be nice to you. And I wish I could remember more of what their family did to mine, but it's just blurry. It's very blurry, and I dissociated a lot. I do know whatever they did to us was bad enough to almost kill my freaking mom, though. I do know that. Yeah. And I do remember this was also the year that, like, my mom kind of lost any remaining filter she had with my brother and I. So, like, she started telling me all these, like, really terrible things about her childhood. She was like, yeah, my mom used to chase my dad with knives and try to kill him. And, like, my mom would also cheat on my dad and would hit us and beat us and just, like, all this terrible stuff. And then she told me about how my grandma also had a bad childhood. And then she was like, yeah, your grandma's dad had R-worded her, and like maybe I think she had to like carry his baby at some point. And this is stuff that she was telling me when I was like 10 or 11.
Yeah. Stuff that I probably didn't even know about until I was like at least a teenager.
Yeah, like crazy that she would be telling me this stuff. Things were just super dark for me, I usually start every school year very excited to start school and get away from home, and this year just fundamentally changed me in a lot of ways. I was tired all the time, and I was hiding everything from my parents. This was also the year I think this was the year I got a cavity. I didn't tell my parents, and the thing about it is I had never been to a dentist. I was terrified of the dentist because my parents had used going as like a punishment for me. So like they would be like, oh, like it was like a punishment. They used it as, well, if you don't brush your teeth and keep them clean, then you're gonna have to go to the dentist and it's gonna be terrible. Which I have a lot of jaw problems, and I think it's from my teeth. Like, I really do think I should have been going to the dentist as a kid. Like, I have so many weird jaw issues, and I had gotten a cavity this year, and I was so scared to go to the dentist. I got this, like, sharp metal object, and I dug the cavity out of my tooth. That is just absolutely crazy.
It is.
Like, what? Which, I mean, to be fair, my mom did not give me the best example, because she would deal with stuff at home. Like, one time she's pulled her own teeth, like, multiple times. She would deal with any medical stuff at home. Like, Specifically, one time when my brother and I we were outside playing, and my parents were up on the porch, and there was all this wood that I think my dad had been using to make something, and there was this board with this big huge nail sticking out of it. And I forgot, for some reason, I think my brother was trying to jump on a board to see if he could break it with his weight, something like that. And as he was jumping, I see this board with the nail, and I tried to warn him, but like by this point he's already in there. It's gone. He lands on the nail, and he's got these thick sandals on. It goes all the way through his sandal, up into his foot, all the way through the other side of his foot. I think there was maybe like a little thin layer of skin at the top, but basically fully through his foot. And he freaks out, starts screaming, rips his foot off of it. And instead of going to the hospital, we go into my parents' bedroom. My mom makes me go get this like tub to make like a tub of warm, like, or no, she made it hot. She said as hot as you can get it. And she put Epsom salt, had me put Epsom salt in it. And I bring it to him, and I remember he was screaming. I have never heard anyone scream like this to this point. Like, this was terrifying. My brother is screaming like he's going to die, which, to be fair, a nail did fully just go through his foot. Emotionally, I could not handle this, but when I started to cry, because it was all very upsetting to me, you know, they screamed at me, they're like, you're being sensitive, like, you're making it about you, and I'm like, I'm scared. So they hold him down and make me bring this tub of Epsom salt water over, and they force his foot into it. I think it hurt really bad, because it was hot, and also, you know, Epsom salt, which Epsom salt doesn't hurt, but it probably didn't feel good going into, like, a gaping freaking wound. This was, like, a horror movie, dude. It was definitely terrifying, and what my mom ended up doing, because she wouldn't go to the hospital because we didn't have insurance, and to me it doesn't matter, she should have taken him to the emergency room, but she ended up talking to this local doctor that we kind of knew. My dad had done work for them on their house and helped build like big parts of their house. So they kind of knew each other pretty well. And my mom goes to this guy's house and she's like, I need you to give me pills for my son. I think she was like asking for antibiotics or something. And things were definitely not on the up and up. I think the pills were fine, but I think it was very illegal, him giving her the pills. You know, it was not good.
Not at all.
No, but like I think she put him in that weird position of, if I don't help her, she's gonna let her son's foot pretty much fall off, you know. Like I think he was put into a bad position. So either way, like, damned if he did, damned if he didn't. So he ended up getting pills for her, for my brother, and like I said, I think he needed to go to the hospital though, because his foot was never the same. But it was, yeah, that was pretty common with my mom, to just deal with things at home. Deal with any medical stuff at home, which is not the way to do things. It was just a really tough year. And I've talked in the past about, you know, this looming darkness feeling that I had. And it felt really heavy this year. You know, especially with my mom. I think it's weird how I separated things, though, in my head. Like, school feels very different to my experiences at home and the Kingdom Hall. It was just very, like, compartmentalized. And I remember I would go to class, and it felt like every single classroom I would go to would be like, it had these like heavy clouds hanging in it over me. And, you know, obviously I struggled with a lot of teachers not liking me, because of being a Jehovah's Witness. And the only teacher I liked this year was probably my science teacher. She tried to make learning fun, and she would do a lot of like in the room stuff, like, for us, like different experiments. So it was fun, but a lot was just happening for me. You know, I felt like I was out of control. I was struggling with my schoolwork. I was struggling at home. This is kind of around when I really started to deal with this problem of wanting to be liked by people, like, really bad. I just wanted to be normal and fit in, and, you know, I would do a lot of questionable things, just to try to make other kids like me, or to fit in more. I would play, like, I remember I played, like, this game on the bus with some friends where, basically they put their hand on your leg, kind of like towards your knee, and then every round they move their hand up your leg. towards your thigh and like up further, and they would there was like a question that would come with it, like, oh, are you uncomfortable now, basically. So like, it's not a great game. I shouldn't have been playing that, but I played it to fit in. Um, which kind of
Happens when
annoyed
you're a
me.
kid.
You what?
It happens when you're a kid.
It does. I just feel bad for little me. Especially because none of my other friends ended up playing with it. They just kind of threw me to wolves and let me do it. But none of them did it. I was like, cool. You guys wanted to do this, but sure. It was tough, and I was struggling. My brother was really struggling too. He was getting bullied a lot at school. Mentally, he was checked out. Like, he quit trying at school. He would just sit in class and read instead of doing anything. Like, I think the next year in school, he ended up getting, like, in trouble. Like, they were like, yeah, we had a quiz or a test, and I told him to do the test, and he said he didn't care, and he just sat in there and read instead. My brother was having some behavioral issues as far as school went. He got put into, like, a remedial class, I think, which, my brother's smart. He just didn't care. He didn't try. He refused to just do homework. Probably a cry for help, but you know, my parents, they don't they don't handle anything actual or real, you know. Oh, my kid's struggling? Well, whatever. Yeah, it was rough for my brother too. I think that in a lot of ways my brother had it better than me because my parents actually liked him, but he definitely struggled a lot too. For sure. It was tough. And my brother also started dealing with really bad anger issues. Like, he would get so mad that he would black out. Specifically, there was this one time we were in our bathroom fighting, and I don't exactly know what we were fighting about. It was probably something stupid. Or it was about cleaning the bathroom or something, because I always ended up having to clean the bathroom, and he would pee everywhere, and I'm like, come on, you know? I get really mad. And he got so mad at me. So in our bathroom, my mom had put in this cabinet where it had these like glass window panes, and he got so freaking mad at me that he grabbed me by my throat and started squeezing my throat, and then just smashed my head through one of the panes. Thankfully, it didn't cut me, but I was screaming. I was scared and I was screaming, and I think me screaming snapped him out of it. And it was always a switch with my brother. Like, if he would black out, his eyes would just kind of glaze over. He would lose all expression on his face, do something really terrible to hurt me, and then would snap back, and he would just walk away. And later, he's like, oh yeah, I just got so mad I blacked out. That's really scary. And, I don't know, maybe it should have gotten addressed by my parents. What do you think, Japan?
Yeah. That was so, yeah.
Okay. I was like, I don't know if I'm alone in feeling like this.
No, you're right. I just, it's just, I don't know. It's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah. My brother and I were fighting all the time, too, around this. Like, our relationship was super unpredictable, very volatile.
Your
like,
parents pitched you guys together. I mean, that's against each other. I mean, like, they
yeah.
always,
He was the
treated your
golden
brother
child.
better. Yeah, so I mean, of course, you're not gonna do it, and then when other stuff that you obviously see wrong, you're not gonna stop and help him, because obviously, he's ended up, doing that, just taking advantage of it.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't blame him for that. And I don't know, I was always disgustingly loyal to him. I would try to stand up for him, but it didn't matter. You know, and that's why our relationship was very volatile. Like, we would get along super well, but then other times I think he wanted me to die. I genuinely think he just did not want me to be alive sometimes. And of course he's getting bullied at school, and I don't think he had any friends. I never really struggled with having friends, but he definitely did, and I think by this point he had none left. And it really sucked because he also wasn't allowed to be friends with the ones that he had at the Kingdom Hall anymore. I think he was really lonely, and he took a lot of it out on me. And, my brother and I would get into these like really big fights. Like we would be fist fighting, like beating the hell out of each other. Usually it was when my mom was working at night, because when my brother and I fought, my mom would usually step in and be like, this isn't acceptable. But when he and I fought and my dad was home, he did not care. My dad would just sit on the couch and drink his beer or yell at us to shut the F up, basically. So then we would quietly fight and beat each other up. It was so dysfunctional. Yeah, it was tough. And I think this was the same year that my brother and I had this family moved in to our area and went to the Kingdom Hall that we did. So they were Jehovah's Witnesses, and they had a daughter. I think she was like a year older than me, but we got along super well. Like, she was super cool. And I think I may have had a very big crush on her. Like, I thought she was so cool. She was older than me.
You and your crushes.
I mean, I just didn't know. I
Yeah,
didn't
no,
know
I
that
know.
I had
It's
crushes,
understandable.
and I had a huge crush on her. She was cute. She was pretty. And I really thought, I just was so, astounded by her. And then also we kind of grouped together because, her family was also poor, and like, we're just trying to survive this very rich family. So it was like, the poor kids would sit together and hang out together, and the rich kids would hang out together. And she ended up going to the same school as me. So we would hang out at school, and we would hang out at the Kingdom Hall. She was a year older than me, so we could only really hang out at recess. And she was super rebellious, and I thought that was really cool. Like, one day she was like, hey, we're gonna sneak away to the gas station to get candy. Do you want to come with us? So our school, like, was right by this main road, and across it, a little down the road, was a gas station. And the problem was the playground was all the way at the back of the school, so it was as far away from the gas station as possible. So you would have to sneak around a lot of the buildings. So you'd have to go on the outskirts of the school, cut back in to get to the gas station. But because there was no fencing and the teachers didn't really care, they wouldn't notice if kids would go missing. I don't know why it wasn't fenced in. I know in recent years it got fenced in. Or, I mean, like 10 years ago, I remember seeing it. But, like, after I left school, it got fenced in, which they should have fenced that playground in. I mean, I've already talked about how my friend and I were planning to run away, and we easily could have done it, But she was like, yeah, let's sneak away and go get candy. Me and some friends are going to do it. And I'm like, yeah, I want to be one of the cool kids. I want to go with her. This is so cool. So we start heading out to the gas station, and we get all the way to the road. And I had brought a friend too, and my friend was freaking out. They're like, we should not be doing this. They started chickening out before I did. And then I started chickening out, and I chickened out. I was like, I can't do it. And she's like, okay. So my friend and I ended up still kind of being a little rebellious. So the library had this door on the outside below it, like a basement or something. And we snuck into there. And it was really scary and creepy, and we ended up running back to the playground. But she ended up getting caught, actually, going to the gas station, and they got in, like, a ton of trouble, so I'm really happy that I didn't go. But
That's
I thought
good.
I thought she was going to be mad at me.
You probably would have gotten really big trouble for
I
that
would have
one.
gotten beat up. My parents would have beat the crap out of me for that.
Yep.
So I'm glad I didn't go, and then she was just like, yeah, no, you made the right decision. Yeah, I didn't realize until I started sitting down for this episode that I definitely had a really big crush on her. So it sucked when her family stopped being Jehovah's Witnesses, and it crushed me, because when someone stops being a Jehovah's Witness, it's like they die. For the fact that if you're not a Jehovah's Witness, that means God's going to kill you during Armageddon, and you're also not allowed to talk to them anymore. So it's like they're the Walking Dead, and that's what it felt like. And it felt really crappy. She did end up moving away not long after this. I was heartbroken. Looking back, I think I know why. I really liked her as a friend, but also more than a friend, and it broke my heart. And they ended up moving away and going to a different school, so I just didn't get to see her anymore. And then I remember seeing her a few years later at the grocery store, and I'm like, oh my god, is that so-and-so? And my mom and I had seen her, And I remember she had gained some weight. And the reason I bring this up is because my mom made this huge deal about it. And she's like, it's because of Satan's influence in his world that she got fat. And
Jesus.
if you quit being a Jehovah's Witness, this will happen to you too. So no wonder I have eating disorders. What the hell was that? You know?
Well, yeah, because you got to think too. If you know that, then once you just start gaining a little bit of weight, you're gonna be like, is my fate wavering?
Yeah.
Is this what's happening to me because I'm having impure thoughts? And it's like,
yeah.
you're just a curious little fella.
Yeah, it's a very
still typing boobies into the chat and putting viruses on your computer because you're looking up at too much boobies.
Actually, I never did. Thank you very much.
I mean, you still put viruses on the computer, but not for boobies.
Yeah,
luckily.
I did put viruses on the family computer, but it was because nobody's gonna know this. It was this game by Nickelodeon called Nicktropolis, and it was like basically you could make characters and you had a room that you could decorate and you could chat with other kids online. Probably most of them were not children, to be fair, but the
probably
chat,
100% of them weren't.
Yeah, the chat was very limited though. Like you could only say certain things, but I don't know, dude. It was
a lot.
Yeah, I got in a lot of trouble for that one. Anyway, I was struggling. A lot was happening. I felt like the darkness was just sort of all consuming, and so this was actually the year that I really got into writing poetry. I've always enjoyed writing, but this is when poetry really kind of became a thing for me. And the very first poem, I specifically remember writing this. It was called What Am I? And for like a 10-11-year-old, this was like a really depressing poem. It was super sad. It was talking about like it was like, oh, what am I? And talking about how empty I felt and how alone I felt and how I didn't feel like I belonged here. And like I didn't know who I was supposed to be. And I showed my parents, and my dad's like, yeah, this is just really morbid, which crushed me. And then my mom's like freaking out. She's like, are you okay? Like, is this how you actually feel? And because of, their reactions, I just kind of was like, no, it was just a poem I wrote. I don't actually feel like this. Bull.
It's never good to lie, yeah.
I mean, it was awful. I just, what was I supposed to do, with those reactions? So I was like, oh no, it's just objective or subject, whatever. It's from a different viewpoint. And then the next poem I wrote, I did tell them it was about something in my real life, because it was about my oldest brother, who I didn't get to see much. He was really in the thick of a hefty drug addiction. Like he was like super skinny because he was really into some bad drugs, and I was really sad about it because I really wanted a relationship with him. Like I would force my brother to have phone calls with me. Like I'd be like, hey, are you gonna call me? And he would miss most of them, but sometimes he would be there for them. And like he wouldn't talk much, and I would just like, I mean, he was like 14 years older than me. What is he gonna talk to his little 10-11-year-old sister, what is he gonna say to me? But I was like, I would say whatever I could to like make him think I was cool. Like I would be like, I would do anything I could to impress him. I'd be like, yeah, I like joined band and like I play the trumpet. I was in the spelling bee.
I like boobies.
You probably thought I was just a little nerd. I didn't know I liked boobies yet.
I mean,
okay?
you were, so
I was the nerd, but I thought I could make him.
You always knew. You just you couldn't articulate it.
Yeah, I just I just thought he was so cool, and I just really wanted a connection with him. And like I said, I was really struggling with this need to make people want me or love me. So this is when I learned how to make myself into an indisposable person, in that I would make myself so necessary in people's lives in some way, like whether it was always available to them emotionally, or something I could do for them to make them not want to get rid of me. So that's kind of what I did, which is really sad, actually. And that actually continued into adulthood. And that's also when I became my mom's little personal therapist. Uh, it also kept me safer. You know, I was less disposable to my mom, which, at the time I dealt with feeling very disposable to my mom because I specifically remember when the movie Joe Dirt came out. I don't remember what year this was. I don't remember much about the movie, but I think at the start of the movie or something, they left him, like, he got forgotten at the Grand Canyon, I think, in, like, a
Yeah.
trash can. And the movie ended, and I was crying. I was, like, tears streaming down my face. I'm like, are you guys ever going to abandon me? Like, I don't want that to happen to me. My parents are like, we would never abandon you. At 17 they did, so, I mean... I think my fears
At
were
least they didn't leave you at
correct.
the Grand Canyon, right? Could have been worse.
No, they just abandoned me at one of the hardest years of my life. It's fine, you know.
Yeah, it's no big deal.
We're fine. We
Yeah, don't definitely have not made it a podcast about it.
yeah,
You
no,
know.
we ballin'. We ballin' still. We're great. Um Nah, it was really tough. You know, I would do whatever I could to make everyone around me want to keep me around because I didn't feel like anybody wanted me. Which is no way that a child with two parents should feel. So I'd just find whatever way I could fit into people's lives and become as necessary as possible. Like I said, it carried on to adulthood. I feel like I've gotten a lot better with that. It's been a long road.
You have.
Yeah, like, you know, I used to make myself emotionally available to people at all hours of the day and night. I would, you know, sacrifice my mental health or my needs to make sure I was there for people to talk or hang out. And, you know, I do think it's important to be there for the people that you care about, but you also need to respect your needs and know that if you are not mentally capable of handling something like that day, then you have to stand up for yourself and be like, dude, I can't do this today. That's a really hard balance to find in life. And I also have had to learn how to, you know, cut people out of my life that use me only for that. And it was also partially my fault in that, you know, I always tried to make myself available to people. I've grown a lot as a person, especially in the last few years. I'm still growing. I still have a long way to go. I'm still a very traumatized, hurt person, and I'm still trying to figure out a lot of things. I mean, we'll talk about this more, you know, later on in the podcast, kind of when we get further along. But yeah, it's been a lot. It's been a journey, and life keeps throwing curveballs, you know, as life does.
Always.
I think that's the thing, right? Especially when you're so caught up in your traumas, like, if you could just have the world stop for a little bit, it would make it easier to deal with it. But the world doesn't stop, and life doesn't stop, and that's really hard. But I think that's where we're going to leave this episode because it is ungodly long as usual. And I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope that you guys are just taking care of yourselves.
Hydrate.
Hydrate. Feed yourself. Food is fuel. You need it. And just take care of yourself. You get one body and you get one life, and you need to take care of yourself in this life because you absolutely do deserve it. And that is something I'm still learning myself. But we get in there. And I hope that you are taking care of yourselves, and I hope you have a good week, and be
Likewise.
patient and kind with yourself. And make sure, if you guys want, this is not, you know, Japan's normal content, but he has been so supportive and kind for me during this, so make sure if you would like to give him a follow. It'll also probably brighten up, give you a good palate cleanser to go watch some of his videos of us playing games.
Yeah, and see Scar get traumatized by video games instead of people.
I'm heavily featured in a lot of the clips, so if you want to go get giggly and have a palate cleanser, I suggest popping over there. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye, friends!
Bye.